Here's a question for you. What do the artists Vincent van Gogh, Paul Cézanne, Paul Gauguin, Gustav Klimt, Henri Matisse, Picasso, Rodin, Munch, Kandinsky, Monet, Manet, and Egon Schiele all have in common? What one thing do these artists all have in common? I'll let that question linger for a moment while I bring you up to date with this week on the Hanamichi. So on Monday I decided that every week on the Flower Path I should have a word of the week. And this week's word is transformation. So on Monday I explored the Kabuki play Yasuna and was talking about transformation of human into animal spirit and animal spirit into human form, which is such a huge theme that translates all across Japanese theatre and art and poetry. Tuesday I was exploring Sagimuzume, the Heron Maiden, and looking at Hikinuki, or instant costume transformation, which is such a spectacular device used in Kabuki. Wednesday I went to the V&A Museum and was looking at kumodori, or makeup, and learning about the colour, or dye, beni. It's a red rouge dye, and was so sought after, particularly in the Edo period. It was used in makeup and lipstick, and was a symbol of allure and youth and beauty, and was so seductive that the Tokugawa government had restrictions put on the dye. Yesterday, Thursday, I had the expert help of Chikako, and together we created a kimono combination that was inspired by the Heron Maiden Sagimuzume, the white kimono with black obi. So today I continue the theme of transformation, and I return to the question which I initially asked you: what do the artists Van Gogh, Cézanne, Gauguin, Klimt, Matisse, Picasso, Rodin, Munch, Kandinsky, Monet, Manet, and Schiele all have in common? The answer is an unquenching love of Japanese art. Why is this? Well, I think the date that is partly responsible for this is the 8th of July, 1853. I know, very specific. This was the day that Commodore Perry's black ships arrived in Japan. Commodore Perry's US Navy arrived on the coast of Japan and essentially forced Japan's borders open. Japan was up until then in a state of relative isolation from the outside world for over 200 years, from 1639 until 1853. This period was known as Sokoku, closed country, and it was the time in which Kabuki and other art forms like Ikebana, the tea ceremony, ukiyo-e, all flourished and had their golden age. Now there is a wonderful exhibition on at the moment at the National Gallery, which I highly recommend seeing if you haven't already. I made a video a few weeks back giving my initial impressions of the Impressionism exhibition. It's called After Impressionism, and I'll link this video in the description. And it's essentially looking at these artists who I've just mentioned, the likes of Cézanne, Van Gogh, Matisse, Klimt, and how Japanese art inspired and influenced their own work. You can see it so palpably in not just the content, but the form and the style of their paintings. Really, really, really can't recommend it enough, and I'm going back to see it on Sunday, so hopefully be able to give you some more insight into it then. Just a short quote to give a little flavour of the effect that Japanese art had on Europe. This is something Van Gogh wrote to his brother Theo in 1888. He wrote that, "We wouldn't be able to study Japanese art, it seems to me, without becoming much happier and more cheerful." I think there's nothing more that needs to be said, but Vincent van Gogh encapsulates an admiration and enthusiasm for Japanese art. He had an extensive collection of Japanese art, and I've got this glorious book in front of me called Japanese Prints, the Collection of Vincent van Gogh. He was an absolute Japanophile and immersed himself not only in the study but in the artistic appreciation, and so much of his work you can see the traces of the woodblock print style of art.